Facebook.com/OneNewsPH and on YouTube, One News PH. I'm Cito Beltran, and I will be with you this morning for the next hour and a half to guide you through certain topics, certain issues that you would probably find useful, if not interesting. Today is October 13, 2020. It's a Tuesday, and this morning, or for today, we will be interviewing none other than Cabinet Secretary and Vice Chairman of the IATF, Secretary Karlo Nograles, and we will speak to him regarding three subject matters. And most important, of course, is a hunger survey where an estimated 7.6 million Filipinos reportedly experienced one form of hunger or nakatikim sila o kanilang naranasang magutom during this pandemic. And what is the government planning to do about this hunger problem among Filipinos? And then we will speak to him about this confusion regarding fiancés, boyfriends, girlfriends, and foreign partners, because for the last 2 weeks, we have been, based on reports, telling our viewers that last week we said the government is considering the entry of foreign fiancés to the Philippines so they could connect with their partners. And I got feedback from that from our viewer and saying, wow, thank you for taking up that subject matter on your show. And then yesterday, the report was it would be Filipinos leaving the country who want to join their foreign partners. And this morning, apparently, according to a report out of Malacanang, Malacanang says that's not yet a deal, that's still being deliberated. And so now I got another email saying our concern is for our partner to come to Manila so we could have a wedding. Sabi nga nila, iba yung kasal Pilipino tali, kasal abroad merong merong divorce. In any case, and last but not the least, we will speak with CabSec Karlo Nograles regarding this issue on the curfew. Secretary Nograles is pushing for a shorter curfew period between 1 a.m. to 5 p.m. and the mayors want to retain the 10 a.m. to 5 a.m. A.m. pala. So I think I said 5 p.m. earlier. Anyway, 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. versus 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Okay, so we will speak to Karlo Nograles regarding that. After that interview, we will bring in Margot Torres and George Royeca, both co-lead or sila yung namumuno, jointly leading the Ingat, Angat, Tayong, Lahat. It's a communications advocacy, a campaign that is going to promote certain health measures, activities. Sila na mag-explain, but the intention is so that businesses can safely open, customers can safely go to the business establishments without any risk. But last but not the least, we will interview Jason Ferrer. Maganda yung pangalan, ano? Parang si Agent X44, kung kaedad niyo ako. Diba? Tony Ferrer. Ito, Jason Ferrer. In any case, he is the owner of Aegyo Korean Mini Mart. Sasabihin, Sito, bakit mo pinasok yung Mini Mart? Hindi po ako pumasok. Siya ang pumasok sa Mini Mart. Siya po ay dapat engineer. Ano yata siya? Industrial engineer dapat, incoming or whatever. And he was supposed to take the board exam. Kanya lang, because of COVID-19, wala. Nakabitin po siya. He is in mid-air, waiting for the examinations to take place so he could actually take the exam. So, having nothing much to do and waiting for whenever, he decided to put up the mini mart, and it might interest some of our readers what to do. We here in Agenda are trying to follow that formula. You have two segments of news value, major news or important news, and a segment for human interest, business interest, or how you can cope with COVID-19. Okay, before we get carried on, let's go to the stories from the front page of the Philippine Star. Allies of Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco installed him as new House Speaker yesterday, effectively ousting Taguig Congressman Alan Peter Cayetano. A total of 186 lawmakers voted to elect Velasco in rites held at the Celebrity Sports Plaza in Quezon City. Velasco says he would like to extend his hand to Cayetano for a peaceful transition. Cayetano, on the other hand, challenges the validity of the procedure. Meanwhile, Malacanang said that President Rodrigo Duterte is not meddling with the leadership war at the lower chamber and is in fact getting fed up with the politics. According to the Malacanang spokesman, right now the president's main concern is seeing the passage of the 4.5 trillion peso budget for 2021. Okay. In other news, Metro Manila mayors opposed the proposal to shorten the unified curfew hours in the National Capital Region. Metro Manila Council Chairman and Parañaque Mayor Edwin Olivares said the mayors agreed to maintain the curfew hours from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Olivares added that they agreed to unify the curfew because cities in Metro Manila are interconnected. IATF Vice Chairman and Cabinet Secretary Karlo Nograles, on the other hand, earlier proposed the idea of easing the curfew to 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. to allow more businesses to operate for longer hours. We will clarify the matter with him as we speak in a few moments. Last but not the least, in the news, the Weather Bureau says we may have a rainy Christmas season this year. Pag-asa says this is due to the prevailing La Nina and its effect may still continue to peak on November and December. As such, above normal rainfall is expected to affect the entire country, especially the eastern section of Luzon. And those were the major stories on the front page of the Philippine Star. Yung pong away sa Kongreso, we can now appreciate why the President has essentially taken a hands-off position. One, because there is supposed to be a separation of the legislative and the executive department. And while he may be head of the coalition of political parties, end of the day, it's all numbers. And of course, you also want a Congress where everyone is your friend. Sabi nga nung kaibigan kong si Jundi, former congressman, politics is addition, not subtraction. In any case, let's now go to our first interview, none other than Congressman bigla Cabinet Secretary Karlo Nograles, also the Vice Chairman of the IATF. Secretary Nograles, good morning, sir.
Magandang umaga sa iyo, Cito. Good morning to everyone who is watching and listening this good Tuesday morning.
Okay, well, that's a good way to start it with the word good. Now, pero good ba tayo? I know you are very concerned. You are principally concerned regarding this survey ba ito o study na lumabas na 7.6 million Filipinos daw experience some form of hunger. Now, we all know that, this was to be expected. This was something that was bound to happen. But, when someone puts a number to it, 7.6 million, medyo shocking. Is it that bad? Or could you elaborate? Ano ba ito? Mga hindi lang nakatikim ng almusal. Kasi ako, hindi na ako nag-aalmusal.
Itong figure that you're citing, Cito, is actually based on the SWS survey. The latest SWS survey held last September of 2020. Kami naman sa gobyerno, meron tayong sarili nating survey which is called the Expanded National Nutrition Survey. Kanya lamang, unfortunately, hindi po tayo nakapaggawa ng ating ENNS survey this year, 2020, dala ng COVID. No? So ang next survey po natin will be on next year, 2021. Ngayon, hindi tayo nakagawa ng survey dahil nga po sa COVID. Ang SWS, nakagawa sila ng survey because what they did was telephone survey. Pero wala kasi sa protocol ng gobyerno ang gumawa ng telephone survey. Kailangan face-to-face survey ang kailangan natin gawin. Kaya 2021 pa ang ating ENNS survey natin. That being said, ayaw naman po natin makipagtalo sa SWS. No? What we should do and what we are currently doing is recognizing that there is that problem of hunger. And siguro, as a reference, tingnan din po natin yung sinasabi ng United Nations, which according to them, based on their estimates, their preliminary studies or estimates suggest that around the world, we will have 83 to 132 million more people who will be experiencing hunger over and above the number of people around the world experiencing hunger, which according to them is anywhere between 690 million to 750 million. So madadagdagan pa dala ng COVID-19 ngayong 2020 ng 83 to 130 million more people around the world. So all indicators point to that seeming fact that mas marami ang mga nakaka-experience ng kagutuman hindi lamang dito sa ating bansa kundi sa buong mundo. And all experts will tell you that the ongoing pandemic COVID-19 brings with it the problem of hunger and poverty. Even after we find a vaccine, the problem will persist, and that will be the next challenge facing not only the Philippines but the entire world. Kaya meron tayong task force on zero hunger.
And you're in charge of that task force, I believe.
Yes. Ginawa tong task force ni Pangulong Duterte by virtue of an executive order which he signed in January of this year. So wala pa tayong COVID, ginawa niya itong task force because we are committed to the Sustainable Development Goals. No? And if you heard his speech, his latest speech to the United Nations General Assembly, he said that the Philippines remains committed to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and SDG 2 is zero hunger by 2030. Now, even the United Nations will admit that hindi mararating ng kahit sino mang bansa sa mundo because of COVID ang zero hunger by 2030. But the fact that the President says that we remain committed to that goal means to say that kami sa buong gobyerno, the whole of government, will stick to that goal. At lalo-lalo na kami sa Zero Hunger Task Force, we remain committed to that goal because that is a presidential directive.
Okay, now who is involved in this task force, or what activities are, because okay, first we recognize there will always be a hunger issue. Sabi nga ni Cristo, the poor you will have always. Now, nagkaroon ng task force, ikaw ang ginawang leader ng task force. Do you have like a 3-point or a 10-point goal for however many years? Well, the administration has got 2 years left. What's the plan for the next 2 years, Secretary?
You're exactly right. Because we only have 2 years left, the major deliverable of this task force is a roadmap, which we'd like to call the National Food Policy. This will be our roadmap At dahil kakatapos lang po ng basketball na kung saan naging champion ng Lakers, it is like a playbook that
Okay.
that we will that will spell out lahat ng action plans na kailangan gawin ng gobyerno. So that ang gusto po namin mangyari, itong playbook na to will lay the foundation for the road towards zero hunger by 2030. Okay, para yung next administration, ang gagawin na lamang nila, sana po ay tanggapin nila mula sa amin ang playbook, enhance or improve nila, but ipagpatuloy lamang kung ano na yung nasimulan namin using this playbook. And by the way, this national food policy, we will be launching this Friday in celebration of World Food Day. Now, when you talk about hunger, it's so multifaceted. It's so huge. So before we begin to get overwhelmed, and I'd like to confess, Cito, that when this was given to me, talagang nakaka-overwhelm. Talagang malulula ka sa problema. So what we did na lang is, while taking a look at this whole problem of hunger, what we did was we divided it into 6 key result areas that will spell somehow our national priorities. So one has to do with productivity, and that has to do with food security, na kailangan pataasin natin ang production at kita ng ating mga magsasaka at mangingisda, lalong-lalo na yung mga maliliit nating magsasaka at mangingisda. That way, if we produce a lot of food, we ensure stable food prices. So yun po, ang pagtugon sa pangangailangan ng food security natin is one aspect. The next aspect has to do with getting the food being produced sa mga kanayunan to the market para meron to ensure that food is available everywhere. Diba? Hanggang sa pinakababa ng talipapa, meron tayong pagkain na naibebenta doon sa accessibility ng ating mga kababayan. But even if you have food produced, even if you have availability and accessibility, meron pa rin tayong vulnerable sectors of society na walang pambili ng pagkain or mahirap or mga bata or mga pregnant women. So kailangan dito papasok yung mga government interventions. The third pillar is hidden hunger, what we like to call hidden hunger, because that has to do with nutritional intake. Yung malnutrition, that's where it comes in. So that's another pillar. Then, of course, it has to be sustainable. All of these systems have to be sustainable kasi we're looking long-term. And United Nations always talks about sustainability, etc., etc. But at the same time, we will always have disruptions in the food cycle. Whether it's a calamity, whether it's a pandemic, magkakaroon ng disruptions yan. So dapat government should be very quick to solve and fix disruptions when it happens. And that has to do with food resiliency. And last but not least, the most important, Cito, among everything is people participation. Because government can only do so much. Kung walang pakikipag-ugnayan, pagtulungan ng ating whole of society, and that includes the private sector, the CSOs, the NGOs, and everybody, hindi rin natin mararating ang ating paroroonan. And COVID has taught us that. Government can do so much, but if you do not have people participation, cooperation, and support, you will get nowhere. Ganun din po sa kagutuman. So that basically is our national food policy in a nutshell. And then all the other details are inside that playbook.
Okay, then what sort of army do you have to put this into effect? Because right now, when they mentioned to me that you're heading the task force, sabi ko, you know, if I were in government or if I were a consultant of government, I would counter this concept of task force. Kasi task force are also temporary, poorly funded, and always subject to politics. If you establish it as a institution that has police powers, that has funding, etc. Kasi tama yung sinabi mo, Secretary, no? I have been into agri and tourism on a personal basis. And lahat yung sinabi mo dito, they're very correct. Very correct. They are real pillars to address that real problem. But the question is, again, parang task force na naman. And I'm not being critical. I want more for such a challenge.
Yeah, I've been studying this problem ever since I was still in Congress, and I've been filing this bill on zero hunger ever since I was in Congress for 3 Congresses already. And
Yeah.
basically, what we really want to do is, you're correct, everything is in place. But the problem is, as with government, ang tendency kasi is government works in silos. So
Yes.
silo, 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 silo. Kanya-kanyang ganyan yan. What was needed really is just coordination and synchronization. And that is exactly what we did under the Office of the President. So when I became Cabinet Secretary, sabi ko, ito ang kailangan natin gawin kasi ito yung napag-aralan namin sa Kongreso, napag-aralan ko sa Kongreso, na kailangan lang ng synchronized, kumbaga synchronized swimming tayo dito, di ba? So it has to be just have to get everybody synchronized. I'd like to take Indonesia as an example. In Indonesia, for example, they have a problem with stunting. So what the Indonesian government did was that they declared stunting as a national priority. And then they assigned the Vice President of Indonesia, yung Vice President of Indonesia, with the support of the President of Indonesia, to be the one in charge. So that way, ganun din ang nangyari. Because it was a national priority, they synchronized all of their existing programs, activities, and projects in the different ministries, synchronized it under one direction, so that they would be able to address the problem of stunting in Indonesia. And in the same manner, and I'm also talking about other countries, Peru, Brazil, all these other countries experiencing hunger had the same approach. You have those programs, policies existing. They're all there. But all you need is to synchronize. Also, once you start synchronizing things, you will see the gaps. And that is exactly what we saw when we started doing this program. So the task force was able to discover that a very, very important segment of society na nakaligtaan or naging gap natin was the children who are stunted and wasted na under 2 years old, 2 years old and below. Kasi meron na tayong feeding program sa DepEd kinder to grade 6. Meron din tayong feeding program sa DSWD, which caters to supervised neighborhood play and daycare centers ng DSWD. So that's only 2 years old up to 5.5 years old, 6 years old, before they go to
Tsaka, hindi ba meron din mga daycare sa mga barangay?
Yeah, yes. Yes, correct. So lahat yan may mga feeding program. One caters to kinder to grade 6, that's for wasted and severely wasted. The DSWD caters to 2 years old up to 6 years old for underweight and severely underweight. Ang wala po tayo yung under 2, which by the way, Cito, is the most important and critical period in a person's life, because that is where rapid brain development comes in. From the third trimester, from the last trimester of the pregnant woman, habang nasa loob ng sinapupunan yung bata, third trimester, hanggang sa 2 years old, dito papasok yung rapid brain development ng bata. At dyan dapat talaga yung pinaka-importanting intervention ng government in terms of feeding. So we saw that, and the IEF passed a resolution supporting that program. So right now, we're looking for funding to expand that program. And hopefully sa 2021 budget, ang Congress, both the House and the Senate, will support that program as well. At kumare, madagdagan ang budget para po diyan.
Okay, before we shift to this issue about the fiancés and the curfew, napansin ko lang, no, because my personal experience is yung utak nating mga Pilipino, masyado ng instant, fast food, gusto nakapackage, ayaw nang magtanim, puro pampaganda. Yung mga ito nga mga plantito at plantita na nauso, everyone, and I wrote a column about it, and I said, pretty won't feed you unless kumuha ka ng sugar mama. But otherwise, all this beautification, we change all our fruit trees with fast-growing trees. We replaced many of the vegetable gardens in schools and replaced them with ornamentals, etc. So napansin ko lang sa proposal mo, Kong, and I really support it. You have my 100% commitment to this. Napansin ko lang, wala kayo sa task force dito sa pillars, communications and promotions. Kasi parang I feel that all the ideas and the pillars are great, but we need to communicate to the Filipino people and promote to the Filipino people, hindi mo makakain ng beloved orchid mo o bugambilya mo. Kailangan lahat tayong mag-garden at yung sobra ibigay dun sa wala.
Tama ka, Cito, on both on both of your points, and I'm happy to say that information, education, awareness is part of our people participation pillar. And number two, yung urban gardening, yung edible gardens, yung backyard community garden is also part of the pillars in productivity and even in accessibility. So kasama rin po yan sa tinutulak po natin. Tama po kayo. Part of accessibility is urban gardening and backyard farming and all of these things so that people can produce their own food.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Congressman ako ng congressman. Kasi nasa utak ko yung away sa kongreso na yan. In any case, let's move forward. Regarding itong mga fiancé, kasi katulad nito, itong si Julieta Bautista. Nako, talaga nanggigigil na itong alin na ito. Iniintay niya yung boyfriend niya, yung fiancé niya makauwi dito para makakasal na sila. Last week, you were quoted as saying that papayagan ng pumunta yung mga foreign fiancés, girlfriends, boyfriends to Manila to connect with their would-be partners. This week, we picked up story na hindi, kayong mga Pilipino ang pwede nang pumunta doon. May nag-comment sa akin, talo tayo dyan, Cito. Pag kami nagpakasal doon sa abroad, may divorce. Dito, forever ang kasal. What is the real story or what is the situation regarding foreign fiancés and foreign partner, Secretary?
Yeah, I'd like to correct yung whatever news report came out that I said something about inbound. I always said that as far as inbound is concerned, wala pa po tayo advanced, hindi pa umuusad ang pinag-uusapan tungkol sa inbound maliban sa the same status quo na pinapayagan lamang po natin sa inbound ay yun lamang ang mga Filipinos coming home at yung if as an exemption yung mga those coming here for work at ma-establish na talagang it is work related, no? Tapos yung Filipino can bring foreign spouse and the Filipino can bring children, yung children niya. So, ang priority pa ng gobyerno as far as inbound is concerned are OFWs, Filipinos coming home. So, yun pa lang ang priority natin. Yun pa yung status ko with regard to the pag-uusap about coming in for tourism or etc. Hindi pa po handa ang IATF dyan. I made that very clear.
Okay.
I also said that ang napag-usapan na sa aming IATF ay yung outbound Filipinos. And totoo nga, in principle, meron na po kaming mga napagkasunduan, meron lang po kaming ina-iron out na mga detalye tungkol sa outbound. And outbound is yung paglabas mula sa Pilipinas doon sa receiving country as long as the receiving country ay tumatanggap ng Pilipino. Diba? So syempre, it's a relationship between the Philippines and the receiving country, and there are some receiving countries that accept Filipinos, that do not accept foreigners. So it really depends on the receiving country. But we have to set the protocols lamang kung ano ba ang test na kailangan, ano ba ang certification na kailangan, before siya lilipad paalis ng bansang Pilipinas. So yun ang napag-usapan. Ang inbound, hindi pa po tayo handa.
Alright. Kasi
ang outbound ang napag-usapan na.
Maganda naman pong balita yung sa outbound kasi meron din ako nakausap kamakailan. He's an architect in Saudi Arabia and he's been stuck here for 6 months, and he was saying, I have a job waiting for me and ang ginagawa ko dito tambay at inom. I want to leave because I want to work and make money. So the outbound news, kung meron kang kontrata, may trabaho ka, wala nang mga restriction, basta yung health protocol and the receiving country is going to receive the outbound Filipino. Okay.
That being said, there will be time exceptions right now that's happening, no? Because you're saying may work na stuck dito, but even before this decision or the protocols of the IATF, meron din naman kaming napapalabas. Basta humanitarian reasons, work-related, all of that. Pero may mga requirements, documentary requirements lang kailangan ipakita. But what is being discussed now in the IATF is a general rule na meaning to say kahit hindi work-related, pwede nang lumabas, pero may mga ina-iron out lang po kami mga detalye as far as testing protocols are concerned.
Yeah, kasi meron din mga magulang. Of course, me, I can't because my wife is in the Netherlands and hindi pa yata sila nag-i-issue ng visas for non-citizens. But there are parents who can travel to certain countries, want to travel but cannot, to visit their children or whatever. So yun yung makikinabang din sa pinag-uusapan ninyong yan. In any case, Secretary, may I ask you about the curfew? Kasi medyo pinagtatalunan yata yung 1 a.m. to 5 p.m. na proposal mo at gustong mangyari ng mga economic managers, and yung mga mayor naman mas gusto itong 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. What's the situation there? How are you going to settle this impasse? Because the president, I know, wants the economy open.
Yeah, it's an ongoing discussion, Cito. Meron naman regular meeting ang mga members ng IATF with the Metro Manila Council. So I'm confident naman that we will find a win-win solution eventually, and soon. Actually, we'll come to a win-win solution soon. Because syempre, now is the time to balance, no, both yung needs of the economy and people returning to work and going to work. Kasi ang ano naman natin dyan is, syempre, we want people to go back to work kasi marami na nga nagugutom at may poverty na po, ang tumataas yung bilang ng naghihirap dahil na hindi makapagtrabaho. So what we want to do is open up the economy, get people back to work, but we have to do staggered shifts. Kasi ang staggered shifts will ensure na walang dagsaan at hindi magkakaroon ng mga rush hours or peak hours. At kung meron man, it's a manageable number. So that necessitates some adjustments of curfew hours. So it's just a matter of talking to the mayor and talking to the mayors, the council, and convincing them. And I'm confident naman that we'll find a consensus.
Okay. Palagay ko, Disneyland solution tayo dyan. The Cinderella Hour, 12 to 5 ang kalalabasan yan. Just like it was in 1972. Okay. Thank you very much, Secretary Nograles. And it's good to be able to interview you yet again. And you're looking good. Please stay safe. and keep up the good work. Thank you for your time this morning.
You too, Cito. Looking good. God bless. Thank you for the opportunity. May buntag. Good morning, everyone. Salamat. Thank you.
Okay, yan po si Cabinet Secretary Karlo Nograles and Vice Chairman of the IATF and currently heading the task force against hunger. At sana po ay kung kayo, if you are in the private sector, you are an individual looking for something to do, something to contribute, or to be, if you're looking for your significance, yun, sabi ni Secretary Nograles, you don't have to look far. There are people who need food, who could use some food, vegetables, and I've said this time and again, and uulit-ulitin ko po ito, no? Yung pong kalachuchi, hindi nyo makakain. Yung palmera, hindi nyo makakain. Yung napakagagandang mga kung ano-anong mga puno na tinanim natin dito, kung tinaniman natin yan ng santol, mangga, etc., nakikinabang. In fact, I just spoke with some people and I said, if you just continually plant banana, you could feed the banana to your pigs, you could feed the banana to children, potassium. Meron nga akong alam na isa, nagkaroon ng potassium deficiency yung bata. Munti ko saktokin yung tatay. Sabi ko, ang dami-dami saging dito, hindi mo binibigyan ng saging yung anak mo. Pasensya na po, no? Alam niyo si Kuyang. Kuyang is, tough love. Yung tatay, ang nangyari? Di biglang, nga pala no, sir. O bigla siya nagtanim ng mga saging doon sa pagkalawak-lawak na lupa na sa paligid niya. And you don't need to own the land. I mean, there's so many vacant lots there. Magpaalam lang kayo doon sa may-ari ng lote or doon sa harap. Alam mo, forgive me, Gab, no? I just need to share this. It's a cute story. There used to be a 3 feet, wala pa nga 3 feet, baka mga 2 feet lang yon by 6 feet na butas dyan sa kabila. Tinatambakan lang ng basura. At kung sabi ko, teka, para matigil to, taniman nga natin. May nakita akong saging ng Sabado sa kapitbahay. Pinatanim ko doon. For many years, inaani namin until finally I said, you know what? I'm just going to get the sapling bang tawag nun, yung yung angat no, yung mga anak nung saging. Pinadala ko doon sa lugar ko sa Lipa. Kaya awa ng Diyos, dami naming saging. Alam niyo po, God gives us so many little blessings all around us. All we need to do is use them, maximize them, and share them. Okay, we'll go for a quick break. And when we return, we speak with our friends from Angat, Ingat. Okay, paano ba yun? Angat, Ingat? Okay, wait a minute. Let me check. Para mabuti mo siguro. Ingat, Angat, Tayong, Lahat. Okay, we'll be right back here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program Agenda. I'm Cito Beltran, and you are watching us via Signal TV, channels 8 and 250 on Facebook.com/OneNewsPH and on YouTube, One News PH. Excuse me. Okay. Just before we go to our next interview, may plug ko lang po, no? If you can, please go to the PhilStar site on your laptop, because yesterday on my column I wrote an article entitled "Pwede na no more." Okay, meaning a lot of Filipinos have been adopting this "Pwede na yan," lalo na in this age of digital communication. It's actually a tutorial for many of you na parang nag-aalanganin pa rin, bibili ba ako ng ring light, bibili ba ako ng camera, bibili ba ako ng microphone. Marami po kayong matututunan doon. Pati na po yung what to do with your dog or what to do with your houseboy or your driver na biglang maglalakad sa likod mo. Dito, pag may naglakad po sa likod ko, tumawag na kayo ng pare o ng pastor kasi wala akong tao dito. Kung may naglakad sa likod ko, mumu. Okay? Wala namang multo dito sa bahay ko. In any case, let's go to our next guest, okay? And they are the co-leads for Ingat, Angat, Tayong, Lahat Communications Advocacy. First one is a lady who currently co-leads in the private sector-led consumer confidence campaign. Aside from this, she is also managing director of McDonald's Philippines. Let's bring in Miss Margot Torres. Margot, good morning to you. Nandiyan na ba? Nandiyan na ba? Oh, yun na. Okay, Margot, good morning, Margot. Okay, just let me bring in your co-lead. He is co-lead for Ingat Tayong Lahat campaign, also the co-founder of motorcycle taxi app Angat, a regular of Agenda, George Royeca. George, good morning.
Cito, kamusta po kayo dyan? Good morning sa lahat ng mga tagapagpanood nyo, tagapagpakinig, and good morning to everybody.
Okay. Margot, could you start off our conversation today regarding this Ingat, Angat Tayong Lahat? Kasi ngayon ko lang nadinig eh. Medyo, I think, the last 48 hours ko lang nabalitaan to. Pero I haven't had the chance to really dig into it. What's it all about, Margot?
Well, you're not one of the over 1 million who have viewed our epic 2-minute film. Okay, so you will see in that film that our objective is to really build consumer confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So both George and I got together, and this is really a private sector initiative of Task Force T3. And we all felt that it was time to restart and reopen the economy safely. And we needed to build consumer confidence if that's what we wanted to do. But you will see multiple companies, even competing brands in the film. So I'm from McDonald's, but you'll see Jollibee also featured in this film. You'll see Petron and Shell. You'll see Smart and Globe, Coke and Pepsi. And I think it shows the solidarity and the unity of the private sector, really, to uplift the country. And everybody's committed to do that. So I think that's a pretty good snapshot. But in the film, you will also hear the reminders to practice the minimum health standards, which of course is necessary if we want to reopen the economy. So maybe George wants to add something else.
Yeah, how did this all start out, and what is George Royeca doing in this? Actually, yun ang tanong ko doon sa AP ko eh. Ba't nandiyan si George? Eh, di ba motorsiklo siya? Anong ginagawa niya sa angat-angat na yan?
Alam niyo naman ako, Boss Cito, dakilang pakialamero, basta it affects our countrymen. You know, the nation really needs this. As you said earlier kanina with CABSEC, no, communications is key. Marami po tayong good ideas, marami pong ginagawa yung gobyerno natin for intervention. Like what Margot said, no? Task Force T3 is test, trace, and treat, and it's a private sector collaboration with the government. Multi-sectoral po yan. Yan po yung contribute talaga pag-increase ng laboratorio natin from less than 20 back in April to 135 now, no? And then now it's expanded to other things. And, all of these things go to waste if there is really no communications and no consumer confidence. And that's what it tries to bring to the table. No? We really need to effectively communicate to the people na we have to coexist with the virus. Alam mo, hindi po tayo pwedeng mag-intay. Hindi tayo helpless. Kailangan po tayong tumuloy po sa ating pang-araw-araw na buhay at kaya po natin gawin to ngayon. Ang dami pong virus dyan na may vaccine na. Tuberculosis, 10 taon na po may vaccine. And we've learned to live with it. And we can do the same thing with COVID. I am the best example. I am out every single day. And Boss Cito, I'm sure you're out too, planting your nyugs and your bananas. And we can do the same thing. And this is what we want to teach the Filipino people that alam mo, kahit anong lindol, kahit anong earthquake, pagsabog ng bulkan, wala po sa atin yan. And COVID is just yet another challenge that we face, and we can do this together. It's not the government's job, it is everybody's job to be vigilant, and we can only do it if the people are educated.
Okay, paglilinaw lang po mga kaibigan, hindi po ako nagliliwaliw, namamasyal o ako nagpupunta kung saan-saan. Ako po ay dakilang houseboy, walang kasama sa bahay at hindi nakakalis except to go to the store. In any case, Margot, what's the situation? Kasi I find it a bit surprising, to say the least, na kailangan pa nating bigyan ng consumer confidence. Kasi alam mo, Margot, doon sa mga kilala ko, mga nakakausap ko sa Facebook, parang mga puro talagang hindi mo mapigilan eh. Labas ng labas, kain ng kain, post pa ng post. Sabi ko, pare, nangaasar ka naman eh. Nandudong ka na sa McDonald's nung isang araw. Ngayon, nandiyan ka naman sa Jollibee. Ano ba? Parang I did not get the impression that people were scared. Is this an issue of miscommunication more than confidence?
No, I think it's been, first of all, it's been over 7 months or almost 7 months since it started. And it's progressed, right? Like in the beginning, I think the fear was very high. That was the sentiment. And it probably cut across everybody. And then as it progressed and the quarantine was eased, like we moved from an ECQ and we're now at GCQ for NCR. And you're starting to also see the cases go down. And because of the test, trace, and treat ecosystem, the solutions are already in place and being progressed. So I think you also see pockets of consumers that already show the desire to go out. We've seen that. We've done our consumer analytics. There's a lot of data on search where talagang they're already checking mall operating hours. And there's a lot of interest also that's coming out on social media that they are looking for how they lived their life before. It's important for us to stay in tune with the consumer sentiment through the social listening tool that we have and the analytics, because we have to have the right message. Because iba eh, di ba? The situation's so uncertain. So actually, that's what we adopted as a strategy as a team with George, myself, and TBWA, who's our creative agency for this campaign.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I think is really needed, and it is, more information. Itong ginagawa ninyo is very laudable, very commendable, because nagbibigay nga ng parang paalala. It's okay to go out. It's safe to go out. I mean, I was saying this all along about hospitals. Sabi ko, nagpupunta ako sa government hospital, hindi ako nagpupunta sa private. Pwede ako mag-ping-pong, mag-tennis at mag-skating sa luwag, walang tao, ang linis, etc. Now, with the malls, I want to confirm what you just said, because for the longest time, I would not go to the hardwares of a certain mall near me. I live here in Capitolio kasi akala ko sarado. Sabi ko, wala, siguro sarado. Nagtsatsaga na lang ako kung saan-saan ako namimili dito ng pipitsuging mga materyales. But one day, I said, hindi kasi ako techie, Margot eh. One day, I
Mm.
just said, subukan ko nga. Pinanch ko yung pangalan nung hardware. And true enough, they were open. So I was able
Open.
to go and buy and enjoy myself.
Well, I obviously I work for McDonald's, and
Yeah.
our dine-in business is affected. So we
Mhm.
do have delivery and drive-through, but you can see, not just for us but for a lot of the restaurants, medyo meron pa ring cautiousness, okay, among consumers, and you don't really see them like going, like filling up your dining area in a
Yeah.
restaurant. So I think
Pero
it's still
you
necessary
have,
to encourage them.
yeah, you have dine-in, right?
Yes.
Oo, kasi I think that was my point earlier, George. Para bang nagkaroon na siguro ng impression tao na walang dine-in, wag na lang tayo pumunta, puro na lang tayo delivery. O meron naman na gusto namin pumunta, wala namang ginawa yung mga opisyal, mga barangay, mga pulis. Hindi pwede kung walang travel pass, hindi pwedeng lumabas. Parang it created a confusion of
Mm-hmm.
information. So people would just rather, I don't want to be hassled, I'll just stay home. So this effort, this project is just the beginning, I suppose.
Ang ganda nga po eh. This is what Margot represents, no? She really, props to Margot Torres, being part of the private sector. She was really able to, put everybody together, no? The best creative minds of the Bois, that's one of the best creative minds of the industry. And then all of the different establishments, no? This is not just about business. This is about jobs, employment, livelihood, moving ourselves forward. And this is really something that I think is very, very needed. Like I said, there's a lot of things that the government has been doing. There's a lot of partnerships that the private sector has been working on, collaborating with the government. But we need right now, as we go into the next phase, no, because we can't afford anymore to just lock ourselves down in our homes. No, we need to move forward, and this is the next phase wherein we do recovery. We rebuild our country in a safe manner. And what Margot has done together with TBWA is really one of the many set steps that collaborates with the government to really show the Filipino people that they can move forward today, not tomorrow, not when a vaccine arrives, but right now.
Yeah, you stressed a good point. This is about jobs because a lot of people are not aware or fail to
Mm-hmm.
realize that there's so many jobs that have been lost. I mean, naiyak ako, honestly, naiyak ako just before we had dinner last Saturday when I found out that so many churches had to let go of so many of their church workers. Some pastors had to retire, resign, or whatever. Kasi wala ring support at walang mga church services. Now, Margot, what is the
Mm-hmm.
impact on the industry, on all the players, partners that joined in this program?
We will measure the impact of the campaign.
Mhm.
We're in that phase, but we just started last October 9. But the reason behind doing the campaign is we have really seen the impact of the pandemic on these industries, not just the restaurant industry, but the retail industry in general.
Uh-huh.
And that's why these are the companies that have been very supportive of the campaign. Um, so I'm glad to hear, Sita, that you actually went out and went to the hardware store. Nasa Kapitolyo din ako, so we're neighbors
Uh-huh.
pala. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, and if you've noticed, right, the malls aren't really full. They are probably trending between 25 to 30% versus last year.
Uh-huh.
And same with restaurants. Some do better, like about 50%, 60%, and the others aren't doing as well at again 30%. So we all know that if you don't have the customers, then you stay open and yet you're losing money.
Yeah.
So that's precisely why there's unemployment, because you either if you want to stay open, you may have to let go, okay, of some of the employees to survive, or you can't survive and therefore you close your business. So it's important for the private sector, I think even for the government, that we start to reopen the economy, but safely. So I hope when you went out, you had your mask and your face shield, right? And there's physical distancing, and you have your alcohol and sanitizer, because we also want to remind customers to do that.
I mean, never in my life, George, Margot, did I ever, except in this season, did I actually literally sprayed myself with
Mhm.
alcohol after I came from a mall.
Mhm.
Kasi, na tayo ka-paranoid eh. But following what you said, Margot, there is this parang confusion. The government says they want to open the economy, and I have been saying kahit buksan nyo lahat yung factory na yan, buksan ninyo lahat yung mga resort at mall na yan, ayaw nyo namang palabasin yung mga bata, yung mga matatanda. But now, I heard from Jojo Garcia, they are pushing for an expansion of authorized persons outside the residence to cover 18 to 65. How is that going to affect what you guys are looking at in terms of the economy or businesses?
Baka dapat pabalikin ho natin si Cabsec Carlo. Siya yung sasagot kung ano yung
And
mangyayari
then,
sa IATF
no,
guidelines.
if they allow that, what would be the impact on McDonald's, for instance? I mean, a lot of your customers are young people,
Yes,
young
that's true.
people
No,
and senior citizens.
well, there are two major things that have impacted businesses. One is the age limit restriction, as you mentioned, and the other one is curfew. It affects operating hours. I mean, we operate 24 hours for McDonald's, and that's 3 shifts. So you
Okay.
cut down the operating hours, we lose one shift, and that's several people, okay, or crew and managers who are employed. I'm sure it's similar in other industries, in retail. So those two, if the restrictions ease on age limit and curfew, I think it will really help business. But having said that, um, let's assume there are no restrictions. Let's just assume that. In the end, if the consumer is not confident to leave their home, and and we want them to stay cautious, but we also want them to be optimistic, and we want them to be forward looking. We don't want them to be scared. So even if there's no restriction, yung consumer mismo yung nagsasabing, sige, wag muna, or I won't do it as frequently, or di ba, dapat naman talaga may pag-iingat, kaya nga our line is ingat angat tayong lahat. Pero ayaw nating takot na like you did before, na kala mo puro delivery lang talaga ang pwede. Actually, pwede nang lumabas. Pwede na.
Okay, George, any inputs on this? Kasi ikaw, you are with Angkas, and sabi ko nga, nako, umasa ka pang makaangkas ka, yun nga lang nasa jeep, sinusukat pa ng metro, paano pa kaya ito? What are your customers or, consumers saying? Kasi dati, malakas na yung ano ninyo, negosyo ninyo. Sasakay ba? Confident ba yung mga consumers nyo or passengers nyo?
I think, Boss Cito, no, public transportation is really key to really opening the economy. And admittedly, the IATF and the government knows that, as we open the economy, the projection is 60%, and we only have 35% public transportation. There's really a big gap that you need to bridge. Fortunately enough, the IATF has already endorsed the resumption of motorcycle taxis, and we're quite happy with that. So we're just waiting for Congress to weigh in so that we can come up with the guidelines and go back on the road. No, as you remember, last month we already piloted our barrier, our shield, no, which will mitigate social distancing, and of course yung sariling helmet po ng tao, ng pasahero. And we, after 10,000 rides, so giving free rides to medical frontliners during NECT, wala naman po tayong kahit isang problema na aksidente o ng transmission, no. So that was something that was one of the key decision points of the IATF to really endorse the resumption of motorcycle taxis. And right now, there's really a clear path, no, for the IATF in terms of increasing supply overall, and the DOTR as well. So we're quite confident that the government is really focused on reopening it. And campaigns like this, Ingat, Angat, Tayong, Lahat, is really relevant because yun nga sabi ni Margot, kahit anong bukas po natin na ekonomiya, kahit anong increase ng supply natin, kailangan po talaga ma-reinforce sa utak and sa mindset na ating taong bayan na kaya na po nating sumayaw with the virus. We can coexist, we can live with the virus safely, diba? As long as we are vigilant enough to ensure that the minimum health standards are always met, no? Yung face shield, yung face mask, hand washing, tapos yung social distancing when possible. Ito po talaga yung pillars, no, na kailangan natin gawin. Pero remember, Cito, sayaw po to. 'Di ba? And kung sumasayaw po tayo, umaatras tayo, umaabante, and we really also have to be agile enough to know when to calibrate and recalibrate. So this is not a one-dimensional thing na bukas na po tayo, okay na. This is something that we need to really look at and monitor very closely so that we are able to manage it. Risk management po yung kailangan natin dito eh. But this is not something that the government can provide policies and magically mangyayari na po to. Kailangan po talaga ng kooperasyon ng taong bayan. In fact, ang pagpapatay po ng virus, ang pagsa-stop po ng spread, hindi po palisiyan ng curfew, hindi po palisiyan ng testing. Ang pagsa-stop ng spread, simple lang po. Mag-mask kayo, mag-face shield, magdistansya, at magugas ng kampanya, huwag niyo hawakan yung mukha niyo. Masastop po natin yung transmission ng virus. Nasa tao po ang kapangyarihan ng pag-stop ng transmission ng ating COVID-19. Hindi po sa gobyerno, sa enforcement, o sa ibang bagay, kundi sa sarili natin.
Yeah, Margot, according to our research guy or our staff, medyo may mga pumapalag daw. Meron daw mga parang critical na delikado pa ang COVID-19. Why are you coming up with this video na parang niro-romanticize ang Filipino resilience, etc. What's your reaction to that? Kasi clearly, pag may ginawa kang positive, may negative. At clearly, may mga tao na sasakyan din yung ginagawa ninyo to their agenda.
Well, we've also done our analytics, our social listening, no, Cito. As I said, it's important to us kasi, well, George said we have to be agile with our messaging. So first of all, overwhelming yung positive response. Okay. I think the one thing we haven't talked about this morning is what people felt. For me, it was the most powerful comment is, wow, we need this at this time. It is a message that is positive and hopeful. I think people are already tired of being told, don't do this, don't do that, diba? You have to do this. Yeah, parang pinagsasabihan na lang tayo parati nung nanay at tatay natin, diba? And suddenly here, it's an Ingat, Angat, Tayong, Lahat message that's just really hopeful about moving forward, about the Filipino resilience. Now, on the negative comments, I understand that there's probably still a level of fear that's higher for some segments of society, and maybe they're not seeing the whole picture. That if we band together and we work together, as all of these companies have done, even if we're competitors, we will therefore move forward, help each other, not just by going out and contributing to the economy, which will therefore mean businesses will thrive, and there's more employment. Kabit-kabit siya eh, di ba? So maybe yung comments like that are quite maybe they lack a full understanding of how everything connects. But certainly it is not a message to say go out carelessly. On the contrary, the word is ingat. And it is really about consciousness and care. And we are also reminding consumers to do the minimum health standards, reinforcing the messages also, frankly, of DOH and the government. And therefore, there's a very strong synergy.
Okay, well, Margot and George, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you very much to both of you and to all of those who partnered with you on the creative side, on the corporate side, to bring out this message of hope, this message of public information and health guidance. Because yes, tama yung sinabi mo, we need this kind of information. Let's reduce this pandemic of fear, and sabi nga ni George, let's dance with COVID because kaya natin. Thank you very much, Margot and George.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Cito. Good
Cito,
morning.
and thank you to TV5 also for their media support behind the campaign.
Okay, thank you very much, and ingat po kayo. Okay,
Okay.
that's Margot and George, and we will go for a quick break. And when we return, pag-usapan naman natin itong engineer dapat, engineer ba? Na dapat engineer ang nangyari, naging ano siya, Korean store owner. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Okay, you're back here on Agenda, and you are watching us via Signal TV channels 8 and 250, as well as Facebook.com/One News PH and YouTube One News PH. Okay, our next guest graduated. He recently graduated civil engineering from University of Santo Tomas. Was scheduled to take the board exams, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic has been put on hold, and therefore had to find something to do with his time. Pero mo nga naman, ano, pitong buwan na hindi ka makakuha ng exam. In any case, so our guest is Thomas Jason Ferrer. Let's find out paano niya naisip itong business na ito. Thomas, good morning.
Good morning po. Hello po.
Okay, bagay naman pala siyang may Korean restaurant. Mukha kang Thomas, ano ba? Thomas ba o Jason? Thomas?
Thomas na lang po.
Okay. Thomas, okay. Well, congratulations. You graduated civil engineering. Hindi madali ang course na yan, ano? Pero mukhang mas mahirap yan. Ano ba ang mas mahirap? Yung mag-civil engineering o magtayo nitong Korean mini-mart na ito?
Mukhang mas mahirap nga po itong pinasok ko ngayon eh. Kasi sa 5 years ko na mag-CE. Kasi mas malaki po yung risk. Mas may hawak po akong risk na ano po. Kaya parang mas mahirap po siya lumalabas.
Okay, pero paano ba nangyari yan? Because marami naman dyan na, graduate ako ng civil engineering. Maghanap na lang ako ng trabaho sa opisina or something. Bakit? Paano nangyari yan?
Nagsimula po kasi siya ng ECQ. Nag-ube pandesal business po kasi mahilig din po ako mag-bake. Tapos naisipan ko po na mag-business naman, na try ko naman mag-sell ng mga baked goods ko, ganun. Kasi pinapamigay ko lang talaga siya sa mga kaklase ko dati, ganun. Mm-hmm. So, nagbenta po ako online. Tapos naging success naman po siya, nabawi ko naman po, kumita naman po ako. Tapos, nung nawala na po yung trend nung ube pandesal, sinabayan ko na po na pag-stop kasi kasabay na po nun, nag-start na rin po yung review session namin sa review center for board exam na po.
Oh.
Tapos, nag-study po ako for a month, nag-review na po ako, nag-stop na po ako mag-business, ganyan. Tapos, after a month po nang nagre-review ako, bigla pong parang nagkaka-rumors na po na magka-cancel po ng boards. Tapos po, nung time na po na yun, nag-50K cases na po sa Philippines. Tapos parang naisip namin magkaklase, naku, mukhang parang sure na ata tayo na na ika-cancel kahit na hindi pa announced ni PRC. Parang ganun po. Tapos parang naisip na anong gagawin natin ngayong May 2021 pa po yung next na exam. Tapos ngayon nga po may parang rumor pa po ulit sa amin na parang maka-cancel pa rin po siya ulit. Parang ganun po. So parang naisip namin na ano kayang gagawin natin ngayong ilang buwan tayo. So naisip ko po na napag-usapan po namin one dinner sa family na gusto nga po ni mommy na mag-Korean business, ganyan. Tapos nahihilig po sila sa Korean drama. Ako po sa K-pop, ganyan. Tapos parang, sige, ngayon po na habang wala akong ginagawa, business tayo. So, gumawa po ako ng study, ng Excel plan, ganyan, kung ano pong expenses kailangan, nag-contact na ako sa suppliers, ganyan. Tapos nung present ko po, naging okay po siya. Nag-go signal po si mommy. So, 1 week lang po yun. Tapos, nagpirmahan na po kami ng contract dun sa pwesto ng Korean. Tapos, nagtuloy-tuloy na po. Nag-start po kami small, ganyan, hanggang sa medyo maluwag nga po yung shelves na una. Tapos, ngayon napupuno-puno na po siya.
Okay, so dahil lang mahilig ka sa K-pop at si mama at si papa mahilig sa Korean drama, that's it? That was the only thing you were, that influenced you to go into this?
Yun po talaga kasi may interest din po talaga kami sa K-culture. Tas may background din po kasi ako sa managing ng financial matters kasi po sa council po sa UST Engineering, treasurer po ako. So tas 3 years po ako under the finance team. So kaya parang lahat po ng dumadaan na money sa involving events ng council ng org dumadaan po sa akin. So naging madali din po para sa akin na mag-handle ng ganung klaseng amounts of money. Tapos kung paano po siya i-balance, ganyan. Parang meron po akong background sa ganun kasi sa
Okay.
council din po, nagse-sell din po kami ng mga merchandise, mga t-shirt po ng UST. So kumbaga nakikita ko po kung paano nagfo-flow yung money. Tapos naisip ko po, pwede po natin siya ipasok dahil nga po na-inspire din ako sa naging result nung naging ube pandesal na business ko na okay pala ganun na type of business po. Yan.
Okay, madaling gumawa ng Excel spreadsheet at some people will tell you that is a very dangerous way of doing a business plan. But in any case, yung paghahanap ng Korean products, number one, looking for the source. Number two, trying to determine which is good and which is bad. Kasi I have to confess, no, I go to Korean restaurants every now and then. I mean, store, meron dito sa Kapitolyo. And minsan pupunta pa ako sa counter, ano ba to? Kasi parang looks interesting pero hindi ko maintindihan kung ano siya eh.
Apo. Ngayon po nag-aaral po ako ng Korean language for 2 months na po. And kailangan po siyempre kapag ikaw yung business that alam mo rin po yung binebenta mo. So even before na malagay pa po siya sa shelf, dapat alam ko na po kung ano siya. So ako na po mismo nagtuturo dun sa staff namin dun ng kung ano yung tawag dun, para saan siya, anong ganyan siya. Niluluto ba siya, malamig ba siya dapat, ganun po. Bago ko po siya ilagay doon sa shelf sa store namin, dapat alam ko na po. Kasi tinatanong ko rin po sa supplier kasi hindi pa po ako fluent mag-Korean. So, yun po.
Pero ano yan, sinasampulan mo lahat ng produktong nilalagay mo dyan sa tindahan mo or base na lang sa internet?
Hindi po. Kapag kukuha po ako sa supplier, kadalasan po binibigyan nila ako ng free na isang pack para po matry namin sa bahay. So, ganun po. Tsaka po namin nalalaman kung ano yung maganda luto. Tapos sinasamahan na rin din po ng konting search sa internet kung ano yung pwedeng ibang gawin, kung anong ibang klase na luto, ibang klase ng ganito. Ganun po.
Okay, but what about yung, kasi ang Pilipino talagang wala, nababaliw na karamihan sa Korean telenovela, tsaka sa K-pop. Pero medyo kakaiba, Korean tastes and style are very different in terms of culinary or food. Medyo kakaiba ang Korean. So the general impression is Koreans is mostly maanghang.
Yes po.
Ano ba sitwasyon o discovery mo and how did the community react to it?
Sa ano po, yung mga nakausap ko po kasi yung supplier, nag-a-advise din po sila sa akin ng kung ano yung pasok sa Pinoy taste. So, may mga products po ako na muntikan ng kunin, tas in-advisean po ako na, ay, hindi yan masyadong mabenta sa Pinoy. Sabi niya po sa akin. So, mostly lang po talaga nang nasa mart is kung ano lang po talaga yung hanap ng Pinoy. Yung mga
Katulad ng ano, we have time.
madalas po hanapin sa akin yung may ramen po kayo na hindi masyadong maanghang. So yun po ang madalas sa akin na hinahanap. Tapos ice cream, melon na ice cream, yun po madalas na hanapin sa akin, si Jin Ramen, soju po madalas din hanapin. So yun lang po mostly yung mga naka-stock sa store. Wala po ako masyadong stuff na sobrang in-depth na po na hindi naman po siya usually na ginagamit sa hinahanap ng Pilipino ba, ng panlasang Pinoy.
Ay, yung mga tsokolate, kasi ako, nasample lang ko yung isang Korean chocolate. Medyo sabi ko, okay rin siya. Although, I mean, I have to be honest, no? Rare naman akong pumupunta lang ako dun sa Korean restaurant, Korean store. Kasi parang nauumay na ako. But otherwise, I really go local, no? Yung katulad nung soju, ano ba yun? Gin ba yun o beer ba yun?
Ano po siya, para po siyang lasang gin. Tapos po may flavored po siya na kadalasan. Meron pong original, tapos may peach, pinakamabenta po si peach tsaka si yogurt, ganyan po. Tapos puwede po siyang haluan ng mga kahit na ano, ng cider, ng juice. Yung iba nga po tinutunaw yung melon sa
Kanya
soju.
pala,
Nagiging
kanya pala kahit saan ako pumunta, laging may mga binebenta niyan. Sabi ko, ganun ba kalakas uminom ng Pilipino? Okay. Ano pa yung mga mabenta? Kasi yung tsokolate, okay siya, no?
Sa chocolates po, si Choco Pie ang mabenta. Yung para po siyang sandwich na may marshmallow sa gitna.
Okay.
Yun po ang pinakamabenta. Tsaka chichirya po. Tas marami din po naghahanap sa akin ng seaweed. Marami po atang gumawa ng gimbap ng sushi during ngayong pandemic. Rice po, sushi rice, yung mga panghalo dun, tofu, ganun po. Tsaka mga fish cake, ganun po. Ang dami pong kadalasan po pare-parehas yung hanap ng mga customers po.
Okay. For those who are thinking of going into business, putting up a mini store, mini mart, ano ang mga discovery mo o learning mo? Kasi sabi ko na nga, no, maraming nagsisi na pumasok sa business based on an Excel spreadsheet. Okay. Ikaw, ano ang mga learnings mo?
Ano po, yung regarding po sa situation natin ngayon sa pandemic, parang napansin ko po na marami nga pong nag-close na businesses. At the same time po, parang napansin ko rin po na marami pong nag-start ng business. Kasi sa tingin ko po, kaya po kaming mga new business owners ngayong pandemic, kaya po namin naisip na ngayon yung magandang time kasi na-consider namin si situation, which is yung quarantine na lahat work from home, kailangan malakas ka sa deliveries kasi ayaw lumabas ng mga tao. So parang
So may delivery ka?
meron din po within our
Okay.
area po. Tapos pwede rin
Okay.
po to Grab or other apps.
Oo.
Yun po. Tapos parang sa tingin ko po kaya po naisipan ng iba na kahit na pandemic is mag-business is kasi na-consider namin si pandemic na kapag ngayon yung situation, na-adapt namin na dapat ganito pala, dapat hindi tayo mag-open ng late, that medyo ganitong oras lang tayo mag-start, isang staff lang, dalawang staff lang, tapos yung parang yung mismong operations po namin na-consider namin si COVID, yung pandemic. So, kaya po siya naging stable ngayon, naging successful po siya. Kaya yun po sa tingin ko yung kinaiba dun sa mga existing na 4 years na business na kinailangan mag-close down kasi hindi naman po natin in-expect na tatagal to ng sobra, yung quarantine, na lahat biglang work from home, lahat magde-demand ng deliveries, so
Matanong ko lang, Thomas, bakit Agyo? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng pangalan na yan?
Mom ko po yung nag-isip niyan kasi nga po galing siya sa mga K-drama. Egyo po means pa-cute po. Nagpapa-cute, ganun po.
Nagpapa-cute. Okay, alam mo, papaano na yan, iho? Medyo 5 years ang tinustos ng nanay at tatay mo sa engineering degree mo. Ikaw ba, may bala ka bang mag-engineer pa kung sakasakaling lumaki ang business mo at magkaroon ka ng branches?
Sure naman po yun na magte-take pa rin po ako ng board exam and magpa-practice pa rin po ako ng engineering. Hindi ko lang po masagot pa ngayon kung paano ko po siya gagawin. Kasi
But you seem to be applying civil engineering principles to the way you do your business.
Opo, gano'n na nga po. Lalo na po sa pag-construct nung interior nung store kasi kami lang po ng dad ko yung gumawa ng shelves, nag-weld po siya, ako po nag-drawing, ganun po. So talagang teamwork lang din po ng family kasi kapartner ko din po sila sa pag-manage ng business.
Well, Thomas, congratulations. Not only did you finish civil engineering, in the worst case scenario, nakapagtayo ka pa ng Korean mini mart. Eh, isang araw, hahanapin ko yung lugar mo at titingnan ko yung mga...
Sige po.
Thank you very much.
Thank you po. Kamsahamnida.
Okay. Yan po, si Thomas Jason Ferrer. And I mean, my hats off to him and especially his parents because alam niyo po, your children have so much potential. They have such a future, but that can all go nowhere if you as a parent are not there to listen to them, to advise them, not lecture them, and to encourage them. And syempre, kapitalan ninyo, no? Kasi darating at darating tayo sa punto na, bakit pa ninyo pinag-aral, tinustusan, pagkatapos, pipigilan din ninyo. Okay? Medyo kailangan po, we have to be supportive of our children and we have to be supportive of their vision, their plans, etc. Yan po maganda, no? Kasi yung tatay nag-welding, yung anak tumulong sa pag-design at pag-compone ng mga shelves sa tindahan. Yung nanay ang nagsuri ng spreadsheet at nagbigay pa ng pangalan ng tindahan. And of course, they went to a legitimate supplier. So I think that's the whole point for today. We need consumer confidence. But aside from consumer confidence, we must have confidence in ourselves. Maski na po yung sinasabi kanina ni Secretary Nograles, sa dami na naghihirap at nagugutom, dapat lahat tayo kasali. Lahat tayo tumulong. At please lang po, no, wag na nating puntahan yung mga wag na nating pag-aksaya ng panahon yung mga pretty, yung mga pretty ornament. I mean, you can be a plantita, don't get me wrong, no? But let's encourage people to plant vegetables, plant fruit trees. Let's encourage the young to put up businesses. And let's encourage everybody na kaya natin. Kaya natin, we need to tell people, alam mo, habang may oras, gawin nyo. In fact, I just want to close the program with this, okay? The Lord has blessed us with many things. Our talents, our resources, environment, even our situation, I feel is a blessing of sorts. Bakit kanyo? Kasi naalis tayo doon sa Western framework, na Western mindset na puro instant, puro binibili na lang sa grocery, ganito, ganon, etc. At napilitan din tayong i-discover yung mga abilidad at kakayanan natin. Now, the thing is, I was listening to a preaching yesterday and, you know, sabi nga nung isang pastor, everybody wants to know what will happen at the end of the world. Sabi ni Cristo, may ginamit siyang parable. I'm going to go to a far country and I want you to get into business. I want you, di ba, binigyan niya ng talents, etc. Yung pera, kapital. Sige, maghanap buhay muna kayo. Ako, may pupuntahang malayo. Pagbalik ko, doon na tayo magkwentahan. Baka puro kayo kwentuhan. At pagdating ng panahon, pag nagkwentahan na tayo, wala. So, yun lang po, no? First, let's discover our abilities, our blessings, our gifts, and then let's move on. Okay? Thank you for joining Agenda this morning. Have a great day ahead of you. God bless all of you. And that's it. Thank you.